I'm Bill Roper. I'm design director at Cryptic Studios, and I'm executive producer on Champions Online. Champions Online is based on the paper and pencil RPG that came out in '81. The thing that's actually really fantastic about working with those guys is that there's been a lot of back and forth, and I think that a key element that's very important is that we've been able to take those core philosophies and some of the core mechanics from the paper and pencil game, but then make them work on our platform, make them work for an MMO. I think sometimes you see where that doesn't happen. Someone says, "Oh, we're going to go get this license, and we're going to, make this game. We're going to make a console version or a computer version of it." And what happens is then the IP owner says, "Well, you have to make it exactly like our game." And there's just mechanics that don't make sense or gameplay systems that just don't work. And it really changes the pacing or the concept of the game, and it doesn't work that well. Because we actually loved Champions so much that Cryptic bought it, and then we licensed back to the paper and pencil guys, there's a lot of respect back and forth with how that works. So we've been able to have that freedom and that ability to really change the rules as required or modify them to work as an MMO, and then push back those ideas to the paper and pencil guys and have them use them. So there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of, I think, respect between the designers of both systems. Champions Online has a real push to bringing all the flavor and feel of a 4-color comic into an MMO. So combat definitely follows that model. It's more action-oriented than you would normally see in an MMO, as opposed to, pulling one or maybe two mobs and you want to fight those, and that's kind of dangerous. Then you have some downtime as you get ready for the next one. If you see a group of henchmen that are out there, like low-level agents, you're going to dive in and fight 3, 4, 5 of those guys because you're a superhero. They're just henchmen. Then as the threats that you're fighting increase in power, and you're fighting, lieutenants and then like villains and supervillains, that's going to be more of an equal balance, or maybe you're starting to get into a one-on-one type situation, and then you are going to run into, basically like cosmic level villains that are out there, where it's going to take 10 or 20 heroes to bring them down. There's that scaling that works really well and is very thematic in the superhero genre. We definitely want players to have the ability to move as they fight. If you go and you read comics, or you watch superhero films, there's a lot of motion. They're always moving. There's always things happening. It's not just, two guys planting in front of each other and just, exchanging, lightning bolts or swings. So we want the players to have that ability to run and gun, to move around, to be, flying while they're fighting, or super running, while they're then throwing punches. Like all these different elements that are very thematic to the superhero genre. So that led us to having not frantic, but a more action-paced and action-packed type of combat. There's a whole perk system in the game. Perks were actually a concept that existed in the paper and pencil game that translated really well to basically being achievements in the game. So as you go through and you earn these different perks, many of them have different levels of the perk. They'll be like, just like getting the perk, and then you can build up to different levels of the perk. And in a lot of them, once you get past once you gain a certain perk, you can actually get the icon that's representative of that perk as something you put on a cape. So you could actually show off to other players, like, yeah, check it out, I'm the top level of this, of this perk. Because you could earn a title early on to show on your character, but later you can actually have something physical that you show off. You can costume unlocks and all kinds of cool things. But we try to come up with as many possible ways to have your character look cool as we can, because that is so vital in a superhero game. Obviously, with a game like DC Online, people all over the world know DC. They know those characters. Oh, DC, right? There's an automatic recognition. I think the downside, and where we actually have a huge benefit, is that there's also a lot of preconceptions that come with that. They've already talked about the fact that you won't be able to play their iconic characters, right? So, well, okay, I guess that means Batman's a quest giver, or I'm going to work for him, or maybe I'm going to go on a mission with him, But then as a comic fan and as a player, I start thinking, well, so if I go on a mission with Superman, how am I ever going to be as powerful as Superman? I can't. He's Earth's mightiest hero. How would I be able to do that? And I think that's the thing where with Champions Online, we have the benefit. It's not as well known, certainly, but at the same time, there is no preconceptions that characters have. When they meet Defender, who's pretty much the preeminent hero in our world, you don't automatically have a belief about whether or not you could, match up with him, whether you could actually help him or not. you get to learn about him and learn about the villains and learn about the world and learn about the organizations and have that actually be part of your exploration and your understanding of the game as you go through. So from a player standpoint, I actually like the fact that we don't have so many things that players know intimately, because that lets us do the unexpected, that lets us have players realize that they can actually become the true iconic characters in the world.